Rolling Stone has a very interesting new piece out asking 9 GOP consultants what they really think about Trump's re-election chances. Now, it won't surprise you that the professional money GOP who would love to go back to Paul Ryan are not fans, but this particular quote, which Crystal found, I will give credit, is fantastic.
I thought of you when I saw it.
It gives away the whole game. If you actually think about this very selfishly, if Trump loses, I make more money. He loses, we go back to semi-normal Republican Party that leans more populist than I think people would like. But we get to run all these challenger races and probably take back the House in 2 years, maybe even gains on the state level because of the extremist Democratic administration. I make more money. So that's a very selfish view, and people have talked about that. That gives it all away. And
quiet part out loud right there.
It's the truth, too, on the Democrat side. These people are printing money. Right now, who's that person running against Lindsey Graham? Jamie Harrison? Something like he raised $14 million. You think that guy has a chance in being Lindsey Graham in the Senate?
Amy McGrath raised $40 million to run against Mitch McConnell. I mean,
it's all a wealth transfer. All of this is a wealth transfer. And the worst part is I feel bad because there's well-meaning people who don't like Trump, so they're donating. They're like, screw Donald Trump by giving to Amy McGrath or
the Lincoln Project
or
whatever.
Lincoln Project. And then they're paying themselves or they're paying their Democratic buddies or their GOP consultant friends. It's the same, the grift on the right, which is that with Biden in office, oh man, you can run these ads all day. You can just be against, and you'll print money. People will be like, he'll do some Benghazi thing or whatever, and people will get all fed up about it, and then all the money will start to flow to these candidates, and everybody in this, people buy their fifth homes and their boats and pay for their kids' college educations off of your outrage. You shouldn't fall for it because this is what happens every single time.
Well, it is so funny. And it also, you talked about the Democratic side of things. I mean, we saw this play out in the primary. Like, they were way more concerned about Bernie Sanders becoming the nominee.
Because it would nuke him.
Because that would mean a problem, that would be an issue for this gravy train. That would mean basically like their version of the Democratic Party where they get, I mean, it really is like a racket where the DNC and the DCCC and the DSCC feed clients to these consultants. I mean, it really truly is like a cartel. And so the thought was, oh God, if Bernie is actually the nominee, he may end that cartel. Maybe he wouldn't have, maybe he would have, but that was the fear. They were much more afraid of that, much more animated about that than they actually are about defeating Donald Trump. That was always totally clear. And so this operative really makes it plain why that is. The piece is interesting. It's written by a guy, Tim Miller, who we're, not huge fans of. He's a big Never Trump guy over normally with the Bulwark. But, he reached out to some of his old Republican colleagues and got them to talk off the record. And some of the stuff is pretty interesting. I mean, basically, they all admit, like, Trump is doing terribly right now, and it's a disaster. But they also say, look, it's early. Things could change. The economy could rebound, so you never know. He also got into their mindset. There's kind of this cable news narrative that off the record, all Republicans in this town actually hate Donald Trump. And he reveals that that's not really the case, right? Yeah. That there may be some things that they don't like. They wish he wouldn't do. They wish he'd handle things differently. He's not taking the approach that they want him to. But there was a sort of shared sense of who the enemies were that gave them common cause with him that I don't think is often reflected in the media. There's just this idea of like, oh, secretly they all hate him. And actually the truth is not really that.
No, they don't secretly all hate him. But the parts that they hate him for are not the reasons that they should, if that makes sense, right?
Totally.
So they're like, well, I just hate him because he keeps up with this populist nonsense. And keeps trying, and it's like, no.
That's what they say in that quote is it might be a little more populist than we'd like.
Which a lot of people won't like. Well, what does that mean, right? And so they all hate Trump because, look, Lamar Alexander yesterday came out. He's like, I'm outraged about this WHO decision. Donald Trump is 10 times closer to the base of the Republican Party and to the wants and needs of them than these people will ever be. They all get elected based on culture war nonsense, which they don't even really believe in. And then they come into Congress and they just work for big business. That's literally all they do. And so you're looking at this and you're like, that's it. Because Lamar Alexander, all these other guys, whenever Biden is president, look, the country swings. If Biden's president, then 2 years later, there's probably going to be a Republican gain in the House of Representatives, like there always is.
Right.
And what's going to happen? They're going to print money, cutting ads against socialist Joe Biden and socialist Nancy Pelosi, who's run by AOC, except that time maybe it'll land because he'll have embraced one thing that they said. And everybody gets rich. Everybody's going to get rich, and we're the ones who lose every single time.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's how it works.
All right.
Very interesting, revealing quote. You should check out the whole piece, though. It is pretty interesting. All right, more Rising for you after this.